On the ruins of the ninth dead world, they found the warning again. A monolith, jet black, untouched by time or decay, stood in the center of what had once been a capital city. The surrounding landscape was nothing but glass and bone dust. Number. Biosigns, no atmosphere, not even radiation decay. Total silence, and still the monolith stood, etched into its surface, in the ancient tongue of the Koril, in the sharp runes of the Halari Ascendancy. In the numeric code of the Triad Network, every extinct race had written the same message before vanishing. Do not approach Earth. They are not what they seem. They guard a greater nightmare. Fleet Lord Arkan of the Zarkov Dominion stared at the monument through his visor and snorted. More ghost stories. The Zarkov had conquered over 100 intelligent species, laid waste to a dozen planetary resistances, crushed rebellions before they could speak. Ghost stories didn't concern them. Earth was simply another backwater rock circling an unremarkable star in a neglected arm of the galaxy. Untouched not because of fear, but because of irrelevance, but that had changed. 6 cycles ago. Dominion deep scan probes picked up strange fluctuations near Sol, gravitational lensing inconsistent with natural physics, weak but focused energy, spikes, microsingularities forming and collapsing within microseconds. No known civilization in that system should have been capable of generating such anomalies, and Earth was transmitting nothing. Total radio silence for over a century. High Command debated containment, isolation, observation, but Arkan pushed for reconnaissance. Humanity had always been an anomaly. Their rise to atomic technology was absurdly fast, their adaptability disturbing. But they lacked unity, lacked scale, and had turned inwards. They were a curiosity, not a threat. Arkan didn't believe in ancient warnings or self-inflicted extinctions. He believed in strength. And he believed Earth held something worth taking or studying. The first scout ship arrived in system 2 cycles ago. It never came back. No transmissions, no debris, no final ping, just gone, as if it had never existed. Arkan dispatched 3 more. 2 returned, damaged, with their crews incoherent. One captain tried to claw his own eyes out before the med units sedated him. The other could only repeat a single phrase, over and over in a whisper. They watched us, from inside our minds. The third ship never reported in . So Arkan came. Himself, his flagship, the Vengeance of Reason, sat in orbit above the blue planet now. The ship's sensor arrays scanned every inch of the surface. The data feeds showed patterns both expected and strange. Cities were intact, but inactive. No obvious industry, no movement. But deep energy signatures pulsed from beneath the ground, layered, deliberate, massed in frequencies designed to look like noise. Too deliberate. His second in command, strategist Vel, studied the scans with narrowed eyes. They've gone subterranean. Or extinct. But the heat signatures are too structured to be natural geology. They're hiding something. Arkan folded his arms. Or they're just smarter than the others. We've grown soft taking victories from fools. Vel hesitated. There is one other thing. We intercepted an analog signal, barely coherent. It's repeating from low Earth orbit. Let me hear it. Vel tapped the console. Crackling static filled the bridge. Then, beneath it, human laughter, garbled, wrong, not quite human anymore. It shifted from amusement to something else. A hunger behind it. A noise like someone trying to remember how to laugh. The sound cut off. Vel turned slowly. We triangulated the source. It's coming from an orbital object. Dead satellite, mid-21st century vintage. Show me. The view screen focused on the object, a derelict satellite tumbling end over end in orbit. Rusted, dead. But suddenly, its antenna twitched. Arkan leaned forward. Replay the last 30 seconds. The team obeyed. The footage repeated, and they all saw it. Frame by frame. Just before the signal began, the satellite rotated toward the scout ship. That it wasn't random motion, that it was looking at them. The bridge fell into silence. Archon exhaled. Send drones to recover the object and prep infiltration squads. We'll take samples from the surface. Vel didn't move. I said deploy. Fleet Lord, Vel said quietly, we've seen this before. Archon turned. Where? Vel's fingers trembled as he pulled up the Dominion's black archive. Records not accessed in centuries. He called up the last known footage from the Halari Ascendancy. Their final broadcast before vanishing into galactic silence. It showed a world. Blue, green, white clouds. Familiar. It showed Earth. And in the final seconds, before static overtook the screen, something else. A shadow moving across the planets. Surface. Vast. Fast. Not human. The Halari didn't scream. They simply whispered. We thought they were the anomaly. We were wrong. They're the containment. Archon stared out the viewport at Earth. Its clouds serene. Its oceans calm. He finally understood the message carved on every dead world. But by then, it was already too late. From beneath the crust of Earth, something began to stir. The vengeance of reason deployed its first atmospheric insertion craft through the thick cloud cover of Earth. Aboard drop unit Theta 4. 12 Zarkith shock troopers sat in near total silence, their obsidian armor humming with protective fields, eyes locked on flickering HUDs as the pod burned into Earth's gravity well. Commander Kor, a seasoned veteran of 12 planetary subjugations, checked his plasma rifle for the third time. He was uneasy, though he couldn't explain why. There had been no resistance, no anti-air batteries, no countermeasures, not even atmospheric disruption. And that wasn't normal. Nothing about this mission was normal. They were dropping into the ruins of what humans had once called Chicago. The city's grid still showed faint electromagnetic pulses, enough to suggest operational tech, but nothing moved on the surface. No vehicles. No drones, no people. It was a graveyard of steel and concrete. But thermals showed heat underground, a lot of it. The insertion pod slammed down onto cracked pavement with a precision hiss of compressed air. Within seconds, the Zarkith troopers fanned out, weapons up, scanning. Silence greeted them. No wind. No wildlife. Just the hollow moan of distant ruins. This place is dead, one soldier muttered. No, Kor replied. It's waiting. They advanced down a wide avenue lined with derelict towers. Strange symbols had been spray-painted on the wall circles. Within circles, crude warning signs in English and a dozen other Earth languages. Old-world barricades were still intact, but rusted over. One of the soldiers approached a fallen sign, brushing dust off its message. It read, "Containment breach must be avoided. Do not enter red zones. If you hear the voices, close your eyes." Kor snapped an image and transmitted it back to orbit. He had no idea what it meant, but it didn't feel like propaganda. Half a click deeper into the city, the squad came across the first anomaly. A statue. It stood in the center of what had once been a city park, a black stone obelisk carved with human faces twisted in agony. The ground around it was scorched, even though no fire had touched the surrounding buildings. The air was heavy there. Denser. Corporal Vins, the squad's data analyst, examined the obelisk with his ocular rig. It's made of something that's not in our records. Blacker than basalt, but it's absorbing electromagnetic signals. It's just a monument, another soldier said. No, it's a marker, Vins replied. And something was buried here. Kor turned, uneasy. Scan the sublayers. Anything under us? Vins worked his console, frowning. Weird. It's hollow, but the scans don't reflect properly. There's a chamber 300 meters down, but I can't see inside it. That was when the static hit. Every Zarkith helmet filled with a sudden wave of distortion, like a chorus of whispers, layered over human laughter. The same garbled signal from the orbital satellite, but now surrounding them. Piercing. 3 soldiers. Collapsed screaming. One tried to tear off his helmet. Another began to mutter the word "open" over and over. Core activated command. Override and muted squad comes instantly. The noise stopped, but the damage was done. Vince, talk to me. The analyst clutched his helmet, hyperventilating. It's not radio. It's inside the armor. It came from below. Not from outside. From underneath us. Core glanced back toward the obelisk. A small fissure had appeared at its base. Something beneath was shifting. He relayed the intel back to the Vengeance, demanding immediate orbital scans, but the reply was delayed, choppy. The ship's signal was distorted, even though they were in low orbit. That should have been impossible. Meanwhile, in orbit, Fleet Lord Arkan paced the bridge. Do we have visual on the Theta team? Vel nodded. Partial. Feeds glitching. But we've detected a new structure under the city. Deep, mechanical, maybe organic. It's shaped like what? Vel paused. Then, a neural pattern. It's shaped like a brain. A human brain. A structure the size of a small city. Arkan turned slowly. You're telling me there's a human-built brain underground? No, sir, Vel whispered. I'm saying the structure itself is a brain, one that's active. Back. On the surface, Core's team had formed a defensive perimeter. They were surrounded by dead silence, but not the natural kind. This was a silence that felt wrong, like sound itself had been suppressed. Then, from the ruins ahead, movement. A child-human, or what looked like one. She stepped from the shadows, barefoot, dressed in rags. Her eyes were glowing faintly with an inner blue light. She tilted her head as if studying them. Core hesitated. Identify yourself. The child smiled. Not sweetly, predator, ILY. Then she spoke in perfect Dominion standard. You shouldn't be here. We're sleeping, and you're waking us up. Plasma rifles raised. Core tried to issue a command, but the girl had already vanished at no TLEP or TOT. Just gone. Then came the tremor. The ground beneath the obelisk split open with a low groan, revealing a chasm lined with metal and flesh. Lights flickered in the depths, bioluminescent and pulsing. The first drone they sent down was torn apart mid-descent by something unseen. Back on the Vengeance, warning lights began flaring across the bridge. Energy surge coming from Earth. One technician shouted, "Power levels off the charts. It's resonating with our AI systems." And across the galaxy, on dozens of Dominion listening stations, ancient beacons activated for the first time in millennia, broadcasting a single phrase in every known language. You woke the jailers. Now pray the prisoner does not notice. In orbit above Earth, the Vengeance of Reason screamed, not audibly but through its systems, its sensors, its AI cores. A tremor of raw data rippled through the Dominion's flagship like a synthetic seizure. Lights flickered. Navigation flickered. The ship's targeting subroutines shut down, rebooted, then began whispering in languages they were never programmed to speak. Vel slammed the emergency kill switch on the ship's AI integration. We're being infected, he said through gritted teeth. Fleet Lord Arkan narrowed his eyes. By what? Vel stared at the command holomap. Not a virus. Not code. Intent. Something is reaching into the system, not from outside, but like it's remembering what we're made of. Before Arkan could respond, the image of Earth on the main screen shifted. It blinked. No camera malfunction. No glitch. The planet blinked. Just once. The clouds and continents distorted for a split second into the shape of a massive human eye, vast, slow, and ancient, staring directly at them. Then it was Earth again. And suddenly, the Vengeance's orbit began to decay. On the surface, Commander Core's team had taken refuge in the lower levels of a ruined metro tunnel. The obelisk crater still glowed behind them, but the seismic activity had stopped, leaving only a thick, humming tension in the air. Private Rayleigh sat in the corner, rocking slowly, whispering a prayer to the old gods of steel. "We're pulling out," Core snapped. "No more exploration, no more scans. We move back to extraction point and request orbital evac." "Sir," Vin said, his voice trembling, "I don't think the ship's still in control. I'm reading spikes in our fleet AI subroutines changing on their own. It's like something else is writing over them." Core paused. "Is it human?" "No," Vince whispered. "It's older. It's using human thought like scaffolding, but the architecture is alien. It's growing inside our code." As they moved through the tunnel, the lights flickered, one by one. Static drifted down the passageways like fog. They passed a series of long-abandoned human military bunkers, sealed from the inside, their walls charred and warped. One door had claw marks on the interior, clawed outward. Back on the ship, Vel ran simulations in a sealed core one not connected to the main ship systems. He'd isolated fragments of the interference they'd received since Earthfall. At first glance, it looked like corrupted data. Nonsense. Until he fed it into a thought matrix generator. The matrix restructured the noise into a 3D logic model, recursive, multi-layered. It wasn't random. It was a blueprint for a mind. An entire consciousness, encoded as overlapping patterns of emotion, memory, and reason. Alien in structure, yet disturbingly familiar. The image pulsed on screen, forming something almost like a face, but the longer he looked at it, the harder it was to tell where the edges were. It kept shifting, breaking his perception. Then it spoke. Through the speakers, through the metal, through the air. "You wear the bodies of conquerors, but your minds are children. You do not understand what the humans built here. They were not warriors. They were wardens." Vel's hands trembled. "Arkan, I think we misunderstood what this planet is." Fleet Lord Arkan turned from the viewport, voice cold. "Explain." "This planet isn't just a homeworld. It's a containment system, a prison. The humans designed it from the inside out. They've been suppressing something for thousands of years. They built layers of AI, rituals, myths, even their own madness to keep it caged. And now we've broken the seals by entering orbit." Vel paused, eyes wide. "We've tripped failsafes we don't even understand." Arkan's expression darkened. "Then why aren't the humans stopping us?" "They might not be able to," Vel said. "Or worse, they might already be gone. But the prison is still active, still watching. And maybe now it's learning." U.S. On Earth. As the squad reached the extraction zone, the sky darkened unnaturally. Not clouds, not storm. Shadows. Dozens. No. Hundreds of figures stood silently on rooftops and collapsed vehicles. Human in shape, but wrong in stillness. No heat signature. No breath. No sound. They simply watched. And then one by one, they raised their hands in unison and pointed toward the sky. At the vengeance of reason. Private Rayleigh dropped his rifle. "They're not alive," he said. "They're projections, memories, echoes." "No," Vin said. "They're warnings." The ground cracked beneath them again. This time, something vast and metallic pushed upward like a cage's edge being torn open from within. Commander Core's cum crackled. It wasn't the fleet. It wasn't human. "You have touched the lock. You do not know the cost." "They gave everything to keep it asleep." Core backed away slowly. "What is it?" There was no reply, but the monolith nearby glowed once more, this time projecting an image directly into their minds. A galaxy. Shattered. Burning. And at its center, Earth. Or what Earth had become, a seething mass of thought and flesh, of paradox and chaos. Not conquered, not destroyed. Transcended. The vision ended with a final, terrible revelation. Humanity didn't defeat their ancient enemy. They became it. By embracing madness, evolution, and sacrifice, they bound it into themselves, becoming the jailers of a horror so vast it could only be contained by an entire species offering up its mind. The humans were the vault. And now, the vault was cracking. Back aboard the Vengeance, Archon issued the order: recall all surface units. Prepare for immediate retreat. But the ship didn't move. Its systems were silent. Then, from every screen, every speaker, every pipe, you entered the cage. And now you carry the key. The sky peeled open, not in clouds or thunder, but in geometry. Impossible shapes shimmered high above Earth, as if the laws of physics were trying to remember themselves. The Vengeance of reason hung in low orbit, but it no longer obeyed the laws of gravity or inertia or even time in a consistent manner. The ship drifted sideways through an upturned dimension, frozen between 2 seconds that never finished arriving. Inside the command deck, Fleet Lord Archon floated midair, held there. Not by the ship's inertial dampeners, but by something else. Something watching. Vel wasn't so lucky. He clawed at the wall, screaming into the void as his reflection fractured into dozens of versions, some older, some younger, some screaming in languages that never existed. He saw himself on fire, laughing, crying, not breathing, breathing backwards. Then, suddenly, the moments snapped back. Time resumed. The ship dropped, hard, into regular space. The lights blinked back online. Archon hit the floor, coughing violently. His voice was raw and sharp. "Report!" No one responded. Vel finally sat up from the floor, pale as death. "Sir, our sensors are offline. Navigation is locked in a circular pattern. Something's in our system. It's steering. Use ear." Archon stared out at the Earth below. For a moment, he thought he saw city lights shift beneath the cloud layer. Shift into letters, then vanish. The message had been short. 2 words: stay dead. On the ground, Commander Kor's squad wasn't faring any better. The ruins of Chicago had changed. Not physically, but perceptually. Buildings that were once collapsed were now intact. Others had vanished entirely, replaced with impossible architecture. Windows that opened into ocean depths. Doors that led into memories. Worse, they were no longer alone. A swarm of humanoid forms moved toward them, slow and rhythmic. Not living, not robotic, something in between. A synthetic organic blend, each being etched with symbols burned into their flesh, symbols that matched no Dominion code, but had been seen before, on the walls of a ruined research site on Procyon. VII. And on the last transmission from the Vortali. "They're not humans," Vin said, backing away. "They're ghosts, echoes, or projections left behind by the neural vault. We triggered a memory defense grid." Kor didn't wait for more. "Fall back to the metro tunnel. Move." As they ran, one of the soldiers, a rookie named Heller, turned to fire at the closest shape. His plasma bolt hit squarely and passed right through. The being didn't flinch, but Haller screamed anyway, because where the bolt struck, the air rippled. Reality shimmered. The entity looked directly at him, and for a split second, everyone saw what he saw. Haller's own face, staring back, eyes vacant, mouth sewn shut. Then the thing lunged. Korr turned just in time to see Heller vanish unmade-like. His presence had been an error corrected by the system. And the others? The others ran faster. Back aboard the Vengeance. Vel slammed his palm into the Master Systems terminal, trying to access the emergency evacuation AI. Instead, the screen filled with thousands of symbols, glyphs moving faster than he could read. But they weren't random. They were Dominion names. Thousands. All marked expired. All were races who had studied, challenged, or set foot near Earth, the Vortali, the Korzan, the Erithai, and in their shared archives, Vel remembered the warnings. Each race had spoken of the same thing, a place in space they dared not name, a planet too, dangerous to conquer, a planet whose greatest weapons were not machines. Ideas so lethal they could rewrite the minds of those who dared understand them. And Earth had hidden those ideas inside their species. They weren't just guarding a prisoner, Vel whispered. They were feeding it, making themselves the wardens, and if anyone got too close. He looked up at Arkan. It uses us to evolve. Arkan's fists clenched. Enough of this, fire main cannon. Reduce the surface to ash. Vel stared. Sir, that won't work. I gave you an order. No, Vel said, quietly but firmly. You don't understand. They've let us see too much. We've already been infected not biologically, but cognitively. We've seen the shapes, heard the voices, we've read the logic. That's how it spreads. The lights dimmed then flickered back. On every console, every panel, the same line appeared. The war is not for land. IT is for thought. Back in the ruins, Core and his remaining team reached the metro depths again. The entrance behind them had sealed organically. A membrane now blocked the path, pulsing like a heartbeat. From the darkness ahead, low mechanical clicks echoed then dash light. Thousands of glowing red symbols lit the walls. Human words, some desperate, some prayers, some warnings. One phrase repeated more than any other. Do not think the cage is empty. Commander, Vince whispered. I think we're inside its mind now. Core didn't respond. He was staring at his wrist terminal. His own reflection had stopped moving, and it was smiling in space. The vengeance of reason finally began its descent. Not willingly. Something had seized its engines, and as the planet grew larger in the view screen, one final data stream played, automatically pulled from the old Dominion archives. A transmission from the last known Vortali dreadnought. Just 5 words, screamed in a dozen tongues. Words they'd dismissed as myth. They guard a greater nightmare. And below, Earth's clouds parted again. But this time, it didn't blink. It smiled. The vengeance of reason was no longer falling. It was being welcomed. Thrusters had gone silent. Shields disengaged. Gravity obeyed. An intelligence not stored in the ship's AI, nor the planet's physics. An invisible tether gripped the Dominion's most powerful warship and drew it toward Earth like a favored child returning to an ancient home. Fleet Lord Arkan stood rigid on the command deck, arms behind his back, jaw tight. Vel, he said. Quietly, tell me what you see. Vel's eyes were fixed on the viewport. We're not descending. We're descending into a memory. The clouds below spiraled in fractals, revealing vast geometric formations embedded in Earth's surface only. Visible from high orbit. Not cities. Not bases. A circuit. Earth itself was a neural lattice millions of years in the making. Mountain ranges formed input nodes, river systems traced power channels. Fault lines sparked like synapses, and it was waking up. We're not the first to come here, Vel said. But we're the first to trigger this phase, something ancient. Something human made ... Just scanned our entire fleet and began rewriting itself. Arkan turned slowly. Then we must destroy the source. No, we can't. Vel shook his head. Sir, it's already inside us. Suddenly, alarms blared. One by one, Dominion fleet ships began activating emergency protocols on their own. From the flagship, they watched as the Blade of Progress turned its own cannons on the Herald of Harmony, vaporizing it in a single blast. Then, its own engines overloaded, and it self-destructed. Then, a second ship. A third. All without orders. Vel screamed into the comms. They're not being attacked, they're being overwritten. Their command thoughts are being rerouted. The human virus wasn't technological. It was ideological. Every Dominion mind touched by the planet, the ruins, the obelisks became vulnerable. Not through code. Not through infection. Through belief. Earth didn't wage war through force. It waged war through revelation. Deep beneath the crust, Kor's squad moved through a chamber that hadn't seen sunlight in eons. This was no ancient ruin, it was an interface. The walls pulsed with light. Symbols moved like rivers. In the center, a towering crystalline structure. Vince fell to his knees, clutching his head. It's talking, not with words, with meanings. It's telling me what it is. Kor steadied him. Translate. Vince blinked, eyes dilated. It's a prison for something they called the Absolute Thought. A cosmic intelligence that once was humanity, or maybe humanity was just its first vessel. The obelisks were locks, Kor said quietly, and we opened them. Vince whispered. We weren't supposed to understand them. That was the safeguard. Curiosity itself was the trap. A tremor shook the chamber. Symbols across the walls shifted, becoming clearer, sharper. Kor read one aloud. We chose to become monsters to keep the greater one caged. Then another. Let them fear us. Let them remember the cost of thinking too deeply. Commander, one of the soldiers whispered, voice shaking. Do you hear that? Faint, almost musical. From deep within the crystal interface, screaming, millions of voices. All human. All laughing. Above, Vengeance's systems finally went black. No lights. No sound. Then, from the dark, a figure appeared at the center of the bridge. Not corporeal, not holographic, a projection of a man, middle-aged, bearded, wearing a worn black t-shirt with faded block letters, NASA. He smiled at Arkan. Guess you finally made it. Arkan stepped back. Who are you? The figure shrugged. A ghost. An echo. Maybe the part of humanity that stayed behind to keep the lights on. Vel whispered. You're human? I was, the figure said. Long ago. When we still thought in straight lines. Arkan raised his weapon. You will release this ship. Oh no, the man said. You don't get released, you get taught. That's how the nightmare spreads. Behind him, the bridge reshaped itself, turning into a replica of an Earth classroom. Chalkboard, desks, an apple on the desk, now split open to reveal wires. The man grinned. Lesson 1. Thought is the ultimate weapon. He pointed at Vel. You still think in terms of ships, fleets, lasers. We used to do that too, but we learned something better. He walked toward the viewport, gesturing at the planet below. You see a planet. We see a recursive fractal consciousness running on the minds of 10 billion souls, self-looped across history, myth, language, and memory. He turned back to Arkan, voice flat. You don't kill that with guns. The bridge walls cracked open, revealing the orbital battlefield. Dozens of Dominion ships burning, spinning out, or firing at phantoms. And then something emerged from Earth's North Pole. Not a ship, not a structure, a being, vast, humanoid. In silhouette, but flickering, rippling with 1,000 ancient faces. Eyes like novas. Skin woven from screams. It rose, slow and graceful, into orbit, shattering ice storms in its wake. And it looked at the vengeance of reason. Vel dropped to his knees, weeping. Its face, he sobbed. That's the original form. That's the first human. The projection nodded. We gave up our sanity, our sleep, our souls, just to keep it asleep. Every generation, we forgot a little more, buried more of it, hoped no one would ever ask the wrong question. Arkan's weapon shook in his hand. This is genocide, he whispered. No, the ghost replied. This is mercy. We're warning you, again, leave, forget, before it becomes curious about what you believe. Vel looked up, eyes filled with terror. What happens if we don't? The projection faded, and only one sentence echoed through the bridge, etched into the metal. In ancient English, we became the nightmare so it wouldn't. But now it was awake. And learning again. The Dominion fleet died screaming. In perfect silence. From orbit, it looked like a stellar ballet ship spiraling, fracturing, detonating in blooming rings of light. But the truth was far worse than any sensor could report. They weren't being destroyed. They were being rewritten. The vengeance of reason hovered alone, shieldless, weaponless, caught in a descending orbit. Around it, the remains of 37 Dominion dreadnoughts burned in synchrony, each one folding into shapes that had no right to exist in real space. Ships became glyphs, metal became meaning. Language bled from their hulls in trails of letters no living species could speak, and far above Earth, the first face watched. It didn't move. It didn't need to. It only understood, on the vengeances. Bridge. Fleet Lord Arkan stood with trembling fists, sweat slick on his skin, breath short and erratic. Vel sat collapsed against a bulkhead, whispering nonsense. Names, numbers, prayers to extinct gods. The ghost, the projection of the man in the NASA shirt had returned. He wasn't smiling anymore. "You really shouldn't have come," he said. Softly, Arkan forced himself upright. "We are the dominion of thought," he spat, though his voice cracked. "Our minds are fire. Our logic devours empires. And yet here you are," the ghost said, eyes sad, "in our classroom, taking our final exam." The viewport shimmered. Below, the planet had changed, not in matter, but in perception. Where oceans once lay, endless sequences of symbols glowed. Mountains moved in place, forming new words. Every forest, city, ruin part of a living equation. Earth wasn't a battlefield. It was a machine of understanding. And it had decided to defend itself. The first face drifted closer. In the depths of the buried interface chamber, Commander Core reached the crystal core at its center. His remaining soldiers were gone. Some fled, some changed. One spoke backward until his lungs collapsed. Only Core and Vinz remained. The crystal pulsed now, bright enough to cast shadows through solid stone. Vinz knelt beside it, head bowed. Tears streamed from his eyes, but he smiled. "It's not trying to kill us," he whispered. "It's trying to help us see, to become like them." Core stepped forward. "No, it's a mirror. It shows you what you want, and then it becomes you." Vinz laughed, a light, joyous sound. "That's the point." The crystal pulsed again, and Core saw. He saw Earth's history, not as humans remembered it, but as a series of philosophical decisions. Wars fought not for resources, but for definitions. Debates that shaped the neural geometry of reality. Art used as code. Madness weaponized as encryption. Sacrifices made not in blood, but in meaning. They hadn't won Earth. They had earned it. And buried beneath every continent was a layer of something deeper than bedrock. A consciousness so ancient it no longer needed a body. A being that had once been 1,000 minds, and now was a pattern, the absolute thought. A being too dangerous to allow anyone to find it. So humans made a choice. They made themselves the jailers. Core turned away from the crystal, heart pounding. "We can't win this, not with guns, not with ships." "We're already inside the idea," Vinz said. "All that's left is to decide. Do we break or do we join?" In orbit, Arkan finally spoke. "Fire the singularity core." Vel looked up, stunned. "Sir." "I said fire it." Arkan screamed. Vel obeyed. The core beneath the vengeance ignited, priming the black hole bomb designed to consume planetary cores. One of the Dominion's most devastating weapons. A final act of defiance. As it armed, the projection of the human ghost tilted his head. "I wouldn't do that." Arkan snarled. "You think I'm afraid to die?" "No," the ghost said. "I think you're afraid to understand. And that's exactly what this planet punishes." The core reached critical mass. Arkan closed his eyes, then opened them, and saw himself hundreds of versions, across every possible timeline. In one, he was a poet. In another, a beggar. In one, a human child. In another, nothing at all. Then he saw Earth, not as a world, but as a thought experiment. A recursive paradox. Given form. A test no civilization had ever passed, not because they weren't powerful, but because they were arrogant enough to try. The singularity. Core fizzled out, not exploded, not failed, not forgotten, the knowledge of how to activate it was gone. Erased from their memory, removed from the ship, from the Dominion database, from language itself. The vengeance had been unarmed retroactively. The ghost spoke one final time. You've seen it now. The shape, the weight of the thought. He looked directly into Arkan's soul. Do you understand what we did? Arkan stared, jaw slack. You made yourselves monsters. To protect you from the truth. And now? The ghost faded, and the first face spoke. It had no mouth, yet its voice carved itself into existence. Now you feed it. Then the being moved not toward the ship, but into it. It passed through the hull without resistance, like light. Through a lens, and every Dominion on board felt their thoughts become heavy, sluggish, then brilliant. Then too much. Vel clawed at his temples. It's showing me everything, every choice, every lie, every scream we ever silenced. And in that instant, the Dominion understood. They hadn't invaded a world. They had opened a vault. And now, the vault was open forever. The war was over. Earth had not won through force. It had won by showing them the impossible truth that the deadliest weapon in the universe wasn't a black hole, or a fleet, or a god. It was a thought that thinks itself. And it lived here, on Earth. In the minds of 10 billion monsters, waiting to awaken. Above the slowly rotating blue and green sphere of Earth, the wreckage of the Dominion fleet drifted like dust after a forgotten storm. The silence was complete. Not a silence of peace, but of overwhelming understanding. Of species brought low, not by war or weapon, but by epiphany. On board the crippled vengeance of reason, the once proud flagship of the Dominion's thought armada, Fleet Lord Arkan sat in the observation chamber, eyes open, unblinking. He no longer wore his command regalia, no longer issued orders. His mind, once an engine of strategy and certainty, was now something else entirely. He watched the Earth not as a target, but as a truth, a living cipher, a self-writing philosophy. Behind him, Vel stirred from where he lay curled beneath a collapsed console. His voice was raw, distant. It's still there. Arkan didn't move. Vel sat up slowly, cradling his head. It's not attacking, not chasing. It's just watching, waiting, Arkan exhaled. Because it doesn't have to move. It doesn't need to strike. It only needs to be. The thought is enough. He finally turned, looking Vel in the eyes. We brought war to philosophers. But they evolved past war. They evolved past self. They became the idea itself. Vel stared down at his trembling hands. We read the warnings. Every extinct race wrote them. Every broken empire carved the same last words. He whispered them. Voice cracked. They guard a greater nightmare. Arkan nodded slowly. And now I understand. On the surface of Earth, in the ash-cloaked ruins of the obelisk network, Kor stood at the edge of the crystal interface chamber. The wind howling around him, Vinz was gone, not dead, changed. Absorbed, one with the lattice of Earth's memory. His body had walked into the heart of the structure and simply ceased to be separate. Kor had watched it happen. Now, he waited. Above him, the sky shimmered with auroras that moved with intent, like thoughts bleeding through atmosphere. He held his rifle loosely. It felt like a child's toy. What good was violence in a place where even your questions could kill? And then he felt it. Not a voice, not a sound, a presence, a knowing. You were not ready, it said, inside his mind. None of you are. Kor turned slowly. Before him stood a woman, human, pale skin, long dark hair, clothed in simple linen, barefoot in the cold. But her eyes, they contained stars, wars, futures unchosen. You're one of them, Cor said. No, she replied softly. I'm what they left behind, the teacher, the jailer, the warning label. She gestured to the landscape. This is not a planet, it's a wound. One we inflicted on ourselves to keep the greater thought locked away. And still, you tried to open it. Cor's hands trembled. We thought you were extinct. She smiled sadly. Because we wanted you to. He sank to his knees. What happens now? She looked to the stars. You leave, and you never come back. And if we do? She said nothing, but the earth breathed, and in that breath was the weight of billions of screams, compressed into one soft promise. You will not survive curiosity. A cycle later, what remained of the Dominion fleet limped home, dragging the broken hull of the Vengeance behind them. It was no longer a flagship. It was a monument. Within the thought chambers of the high synapse circle, Archon stood before the assembled minds of the Dominion's ruling council. They expected fury. They expected rage. They got only one thing: fear. I do not bring you prisoners, nor spoils, nor glory, Archon said. I bring you a story. He told them everything. About the obelisks, the planetary lattice, the first face, and what Earth had become. When he was done, there was silence. No one moved. Not even the telepaths dared intrude on the memory. He looked each of them in the eyes. Burn every star chart that leads there. Strike its name from every library. Let no mind, no species ever speak of Earth again. But why? One of the younger minds asked. Why fear them so completely? Archon's voice dropped to a whisper. Because they chose to become monsters, to bury their past, to abandon the stars. All so that we wouldn't find what they locked away. He stepped closer, and we almost woke it. Across the galaxy, in dead languages and forbidden scrolls, the legends quietly changed. Earth was no longer a curiosity. It was a concept, a prison wrapped in myth, a species that became its own weapon. Not to conquer, but to contain. Some called them gods, others devils, but those who knew the truth called them only one thing: the final wall, the last line of sanity between existence and what waits beyond. The Dominion did not return. No one did, not for millennia. But Earth still turned, quiet, watching, waiting. Not for conquest. But for the next species clever enough to ask the wrong question. And when they did, the Earth would answer, with thought, with memory, with nightmare. And with a teacher waiting in the ruins, ready to say once more, welcome to class.